I'd like to start by thanking you and welcoming you all to my grandfather's 68th birthday celebration. 68 isn't your typical milestone birthday, so why give a speech? To be honest, any birthday after 60 is a milestone to me. I'd like to start, I thought I would start essentially by sharing with you the definition of grandfather and granddaddy and telling you how well my grandfather exemplifies that definition. But I found it a bit cliche, so I thought a more fun way to get to know my grandfather would be to share with you guys what his name means. It wasn't until late elementary school that I even learned what my grandfather's name is. Steve David, or SD to his close buddies. Steve or Stephen means crowned one. My grandfather is the patriarch in the family and has been a leader in our family for the last 21 years I've been alive and leads a family of nearly 20 of us. It's a big, tough job. One of my favorite examples of my grandfather acting as the crowned one is his incessant need for the grandchildren to refer to him as a grandfather. Since I was little, he's been telling my cousin Michael and I, my oldest cousin, to call him grandfather, and to say it exactly like that. Most of the time we just look right back at him and say, okay, granddaddy. Even after 6 more grandchildren, he's tried to get all of them to refer to him as grandfather and has only had success with the last 2, Titus and Caleb, and only on some occasion. But give us a few months and they'll be calling him granddaddy in no time. On to David. David means beloved or friend. Of the 2 definitions, crowned one and beloved or friend, my granddaddy is 100% my best friend. He's been to all of my stuff, to any of my dance performances, choir performances, church performances, ribbon cuttings, parades, football performances, basketball performances, pep rally performances. If I was performing or receiving an award, he was there. This adds a unique relationship to our bond as granddaughter and grandfather because it gives us something to talk about. We have something to share. Because he's invested in my life, I can in turn invest in his life. So he's my granddaddy, but he's also my friend. My grandfather has inspired me in numerous ways, 2 of which I'd like to share. The first is my drive to be a good performer and to succeed. Believe it or not, my grandfather grew up in Dallas, Texas, and was a cheerleader in high school. It was cool to be a cheerleader back then. You did partner stunts, so my grandfather had a partner, I think her name was Mindy, and all through high school they stayed together and did partner tricks. When you got to be a junior or senior in high school, the Dallas area schools downtown got to then audition to be Dallas Cowboy cheerleader, back when they used to let boys on the team. I believe it, it's true, I promise. If you go on the website and look at the archives, you'll see my granddaddy's picture from like 1965. It's got his name under it, and he's squatting like this, and he's got his cheerleader Mindy on his back, and he's making the best face I've ever seen in my life. So because my granddaddy got to participate in being a Dallas Cowboys cheerleader, all growing up, he drilled and ingrained in me to have a performance and success-driven lifestyle. And not in a bad way in that I would feel bad about myself if I couldn't perform or succeed, but in a way that encouraged and motivated me to just throw myself out there and dance and in choral performances. This again added to our strong bond as a grandfather and granddaughter relationship. Another way my granddaddy has inspired me is his talks and long, long talks to me about boys. I've always dated off and on in high school and never really had too serious of a relationship, but I can always count on my grandfather to give me sound advice. Lots of people say they'd want their mom and dad or their brother or maybe an older sister to approve, maybe even an uncle, to approve of a relationship in their life. I would say 100% the guy I'm going to date better like my granddaddy and my granddaddy better like the guy. He's shown me what it means to be a father, to be a grandfather, to be a husband, and to all around be a God-fearing guy. And I wouldn't know a great example of a guy if I didn't have my grandfather in my life. The last story I'd like to share is a great picture of who my grandfather is. It's a funny story and a great story and displays both sides of him, the crowned one, the leader, the boss, and then the fun, soft-loving teddy bear sort of guy. When I was 18 years old, I got my first tattoo on the inside of my left wrist. It says, "Live Love." I'd wanted the tattoo since I was 15 years old and knew I was going to get it. My family was super supportive, and I had my birthday party at the tattoo parlor, and it was just a great time. Almost a year later, I was sitting around one night at dinner, and my dad suggested that I get another tattoo to represent and honor my grandparents. So I did the first thing I thought to do. I went home and I pulled out all of my birthday cards. You're probably thinking, why would you pull out all of your birthday cards? What does that have to do with your grandparents? Well, the joke in my family is that my grandmother is an artist, and her artwork is everywhere around all of our homes, and all over her home as well. My granddaddy, to fit in, needed to figure out a way to compete with my grandmother because he's performance driven. So his way of doing that was to sign all of the birthday and Christmas cards with a little picture of he and my grandma, their cats, and then if it's the birthday boy or birthday girl, depicted in their stage of life. So I've been known to have been in all sorts of costumes since I was little until 18 years old. So on this particular night, when my dad suggests I find something to represent them for a tattoo, I pull out my 18th birthday card, the same card I received on the day I got the tattoo in the first place. So I pull out this birthday card, and right here I have this picture of my grandparents tattooed on my wrist. So I took it to the parlor, they tattooed it up, and 2 days later, it was a Sunday, and I was out at lunch with my grandparents, and it was just me, my grandma, my granddaddy, and my brother, and I knew I had to tell him, but I was so nervous. So I, for whatever reason, was wearing a long sleeve shirt in the middle of July, and it was nearing close to my granddad's birthday. And so I have the sleeve pulled down, and I'm holding it close to my chest, and the waiter comes, and he's asking me if I'm okay, because I'm holding my arm close to my chest, and my grandparents hadn't noticed until, of course, the waiter had to say something. So he walks up and I say, "Granddaddy, I have something to tell you." And I hold my wrist close to my chest, and he immediately knows what I'm about to do, and he goes, "Did you get another tattoo? I told you if you got another tattoo, it had to be a picture of my face on your arm." And I said, "Granddaddy, that's so funny that you said that because I did that exact thing." And so I pull back my sleeve and I show him the tattoo. And I was expecting, I don't know what. I was just so nervous about what his reaction was going to be. So he grabs my wrist and he's holding it. And the look on his face is pure shock, but also approval. So he's still holding my wrist, and I'm just sitting there, and my grandma's laughing, and my brother's laughing, and the waiter comes, and my granddaddy says, "Would you look at this? Would you look at my granddaughter? Would you see what she did? She tattooed her wrist." And he tells the whole story, and towards the end of the story, he starts to cry because he realizes how special it was for me to honor them. So my grandparents aren't dead, I just have a tattoo to honor them, and I feel like I should clear that up because everybody always asks. So my grandfather has inspired me in numerous ways, and right now we're facing true adversity as a family. One of my cousins, Josh, has been in the hospital since October for a car accident, and my granddad has had to be a leader and rock for our family and kind of be the one to spearhead our reactions to things as they come, and we get news from the hospital about Josh's progress. And in the midst of all of this, my grandfather has unfortunately gotten really sick. He's not sick enough to be hospital-ridden, but he's still very sick. His energy is low, he hasn't been eating a whole lot, and it's just difficult to watch him go through this, whether it's stress-induced or if something else is going on. But something he's always told me is to rise above it. So anytime I've been faced with tragedy, I can hear my grandfather in the back of my head saying, "Caitlin, rise above it." Life is tough, and we don't always know the answers to things, and we don't always understand why things get thrown at us when they do. And so I don't always understand why Josh has to be in the hospital or why my granddaddy has to get sick in the middle of it. But I can hear him saying, "Caitlin, rise above it." Well, back at you, Granddaddy. You might be sick, but please rise above it. So as I conclude here today, I hope that you hear those words in the back of your head, and I hope you have someone in your life who you can honor and cherish and who inspires you like my granddaddy has. So to Steve, happy birthday, Granddaddy.